Hey Cactus Militia, it's Bajanis here, and I'm here to give you some good DM tips, probably the most important DM tips that I've ever had in my entire life. But first, I've got a story to tell you from high school that's kind of relevant. So, in this story, I was just starting out on Dungeons & Dragons 4E. The game itself sucked, but it was just my introductory point. It was a fun time for me after school to play with my friends. The problem that I kept running into is I was just a player back then, and I wanted to DM. I wanted to create this big, expansive world with quests and a huge, overarching story that would take years to complete. And I'd sit down and begin writing like anybody that wants to make a world or anything like that would. And every single time I got into making a world or even just trying to figure out where are my players going to start, I'd come into a block. I'd get about 10 words into my writing and I couldn't write anything else. I didn't know. I couldn't even begin to fathom the idea of what's a good place for my world to start. And that brings us to today's video. So, if you think about it, the overwhelming task of creating a world and putting quests in it and fleshing the whole thing out, it takes years. It takes a very long time, unless you're like if you're just using a map from like Forgotten Realms, like maybe the world doesn't take a while. But then what's it like if you're doing Forgotten Realms? What's a good place for your story that you're creating? And that's usually the block that people come into. You have all these options, even in pre-made worlds. So my advice today is more of how to get past that. When you sit down for a campaign, at least in my personal experience, I might not be right about this at all. My best experience DMing a campaign, even in modules, I read what are my players going to do in session 1. How far will they get in session 1? And in case they get farther, do I need to prepare a little bit more? So with that in mind of how I start my campaigns and what I'm doing in my campaigns, I keep in mind that when I write. So I do the first session. What town are they going to start in? Are they going to start in an elf town? Are they going to start in a human town, a dwarven town, maybe some large capital in the middle of the world? Are they going to start on the road? But I imagine where they're going to initially start. Just any random start location. Then I think of the dungeon. So what adventure am I going to put in this town? Okay, well that, like whatever dungeon I just came up with or adventure that I just came up with needs to go into that, a tie to it needs to go into that city. And that's your first plot hook. So once I know for sure that it can connect, then I flesh out the city completely. Blacksmiths, inns, if they have a magic shop, stables, walls, decorations. Is it one pathway with branching pathways, and the middle pathway has it's the road to this ginormous keep or fluted tower of an elven city. Those are the things that I flesh out about the city. Just getting the general information, and making sure that my players can very well imagine it and feel like they are going to this city. And then I do the same with the dungeon. I draw out a map on a grid, and I think of what's going to go in each room. And once I'm done drawing that dungeon and writing that city, I think of the overarching theme of my whole campaign. Who is my big bad? What why is my big bad the big bad? What is he doing? And then I think of some way that I can tie that either into the adventure, or think of a way that I can lead my players into that. Maybe there's, for instance, I have a campaign right now that I'm going to be starting to run soon, but the campaign itself is starting in an elven city. The elven city is seeing loved ones walk around in, like, at night, and what my players don't know is that the spirits that are walking the city at night are consuming the souls of the residents there, so a lich can raise an army. So the players are asked to figure out what's going on in the crypt where all of these elves are buried, to find out that the first queen of this city, the one who built it all, is being tormented in her grave by the lich, and that the only way to stop him is with this sword, and they need to find some way that they can power this sword. I don't know where they're going to go in the next session afterwards, but it gives me a great starting point for the dungeon and for the entire campaign. It has the plot hooks that then I can work off of that. It gives me a solid starting point. I only have this one town fleshed out completely, but I have a starting point to know, well, maybe they're going to stay here, or maybe they're going to go to another city. And that's where my advice is. Start small. Start with the bare minimum. Go session by session. The problem of getting writer's block, it makes people stop being DMs, and I don't want to see that. I love seeing new DMs. I love it. And like I said, guys, I just want to give you the best advice that I can. So yeah, with that, I'm gonna lead off, but I hope all of you have a wonderful Halloween. I'm probably going to be doing a giveaway stream on my Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/Bajanus. And I hope to see you all there. Really quick, Cactus Militia, before I forget, I started a Patreon that is going to have information for a subs-only D&D session. The link for that will be below. Same with my Twitch, my Twitter. Go ahead and hit like, follow, subscribe, and in terms of the Patreon, any support is always welcome. I love all of you guys, and I look forward to seeing where this goes. The Patreon is going to directly impact upgrades to the channel, or D&D games, new merch, all of it. So with that, have a good day, guys.